This might be one of the goofiest looking Optimus Primes Hasbro has ever given us. Welcome back to the show, it's Gay for May, and the Transformers legacy continues with Legacy Laser Optimus Prime. Black and red and neon all over, Laser Optimus Prime is a slight departure from the average Optimus design, and his story begins about 30 years ago. The 90s were really interesting. The world was changing, and it seemed like it was going in the right direction. Information technology was developing at an incredible pace, allowing us to bring our wildest dreams to life, but also stoke our greatest fears.
What's going to happen in the Y2K?
Will I lose my benefits?
And the US even elected its first black president. The 90s were sick, but the 90s were also going to revolutionize the way children play.
Power Rangers!
Black Helmet.
With imports from Japan set to dominate the children's market in the coming years, a stranglehold that exists to this very day, Transformers were all but done. But its continued success in Europe impressed Hasbro enough to revitalize the brand, giving us Generation 2.
Transforming from big rig into powerful robot, he's the greatest Autobot warrior of them all.
And Laser Prime was one of the new standout designs from this reboot. And here he is today, updated with modernized engineering. But for all the legacy hype, and as someone who typically loves an obscure 90s reference, I have one really annoying problem with this figure. But I can say wholeheartedly that I don't have any misgivings about the vehicle mode. Laser Optimus's truck mode is absolutely sublime, especially with the added trailer. Bold of Hasbro to release a toy of an oil tanker in such trying times. Now a long-nosed semi with a flame pattern, he's surely a cheeky nod to Bayverse Optimus, as the original Laser Prime featured a simpler red and black gradient. The colors across the trailer are tonally cohesive, giving us one of the darkest Optimus color schemes that isn't a Nemesis variation. The tail end of the truck is mostly reused from Earthrise Prime, but the entire front is brand new, and honestly, I would say it's much more realistic. The details and the shapes are straightforward. You can easily pick out the placement of the door, the side mirrors are larger, and there's even little steps to climb into the cab. I like the shape of the windows wrapping around the front and sides, but since there's nothing interesting to see within, I would have preferred the same silver undercoating that Earthrise Prime received. He is a long boy. When compared to Earthrise Optimus, Laser Prime is about 30% longer. You know? My sister started seeing someone who's 30% longer. Us Mexicans, we're pretty thick guys overall, but we can't compete with that white meat, if you know what I mean. And with that, this episode has reached its quota for self-flagellating racist jokes. I'm sorry if you don't get it. Thanks for playing, everybody. What's funny about this trailer is that it doesn't really work that well with Earthrise Optimus, as it loses a lot of range of motion. And you can see they've cut down on some of the 90s cheese, removing the large graphic with the big bold name tag running along the side. Something that the Titans Return version actually retained. But then again, Titans Return did just about everything a little better, didn't it? I'm actually a much bigger fan of this trailer than I thought I was gonna be. Usually I don't like these battle station gimmicks because I don't find them particularly interesting, but the transformation being fun and simple along with the functionality is what won me over. The tower in the center can turn, as can the turret, and you can park Optimus alongside to get beat off by this little articulated arm. The turret can also be removed and given to Optimus as a secret extra blaster. There are dedicated storage spots for his handheld weapons, but both can also attach to the truck for readily available and self-contained storage. His two other weapons are a blue energon axe and a longsword, which can be held separately or combined into a massive two-handed sword. Unfortunately, the handle for the axe is actually a bit too thick. It doesn't really fit in Prime's hand, and I don't want to force it. Laser Optimus Prime is an almost regal-looking design, with big silver shoulder pads and exaggerated antenna, giving his head a crowned appearance. He replicates most of the main color placements of the original, and it's interesting to think that he's primarily silver, gray, and black, with Prime's usual blue and red being relegated to accenting colors. This is not the weirdest Prime of this era, but you gotta wonder, why did so many G2 figures have such wild color schemes? Well, long before the Transformers team experimented with a little concept called Beast Wars, they were experimenting with something else entirely: crystal meth. And as a direct consequence of that, Transformers Generation 2 featured slews of characters that looked like a 4-year-old threw up all over them after a Skittles bender on Halloween. But the lustrous and translucent appearance of the drug also inspired the now standard usage of light piping in the characters' eyes. This was a super influential time for modern design practices. But what could possibly be my favorite part about this figure is the transformation. It reminds me a lot of Siege Optimus, who had a fairly complex transformation with several steps and specific timing for when to move certain pieces. Earthrise Optimus also has quite a few steps, but they're simpler and direct. Laser Prime is definitely less complicated than either of the other two, but transformations that force you to solve a dedicated sequence of steps will always be more fun to me, and is something that I think is underappreciated at times. Keep in mind, this is the opinion of somebody who doesn't follow the instructions when he gets a new Transformer. The torso isn't just unceremoniously placed below the chassis the way the originals was. It's formed in a way that cleverly allows for unnecessary truck details to be absorbed inside the body, similar to how Earthrise Prime eats the front face and grille of the truck to reveal the real robot body underneath. Unfortunately, this does mean he has a fake chest. Now, I know that fake parts are a touchy subject for a lot of people, and a lot of you out there are real chest fans. I'm not saying I'm not one of you, but I believe that I'm fairly pragmatic when it comes to Transformers, and this isn't in response to any recent discussion in particular. But when the argument against fake parts just sounds like an appeal to traditional design standards, like if you wanted a figure to transform the exact same way the old version did, you probably should just buy the old figure and save your complaints. But that's neither here nor there. Impressive as the robot mode is in these many facets, there's one irking problem I have with it. The arms are hilariously out of proportion with the rest of the body. Most of the photos I've seen are really deceptive, because they tend to show him at a flattering angle, and his massive pylons can be distracting. But ignore that, and you'll see that not only are the arms super thin, his shoulders are hilariously dinky and positioned very low on the torso. You can see it especially when compared to Earthrise Prime. Legacy Prime is shaped like a competitive Naruto runner. Now, the reason that they did this, I assume, was to fit the arms inside the cab during transformation, with the assumption that the mass of the shoulder pads would help hide the dinkiness. Well, it really doesn't help from any angle beyond a 3/4 view. And what's even more frustrating is that the forearms hang out the back of the cab, so it's not as if they've been entirely concealed anyway. If you can't thicken them up the way they are now, why not just design the arms to become the cab itself? Well, you might have to find a new place to put the head then. Oh my god, Titan's Return really did do everything better. I gotta say though, keep doing these flip out hands as ball joints. It's not especially great in this case, but if you can give it to anyone else, I'd say it's a good practice to keep up. Laser Prime on the whole is a nice package and a fair alternative to Earthrise Prime. While I don't like certain aspects of it, such as the arms, I haven't noticed anyone else having an issue with these things, so it might just be a me problem. Hopefully if they do another production run, they'll fix some of these smaller issues like the axe handle. And if your axe can handle more videos, you should check out some of my other Legacy reviews in this playlist. But anyway, that's just my opinions. Please leave yours in the comments below. Bye bye.
Fine. I'll do it myself.